Weeks dragged into months, and Emenike's suffering refused to disappear. Every morning, he woke up with heavy thoughts. Every night, he slept with unanswered questions. Pain followed him like a shadow. His body was tired, his spirit was weak, and his hope was thinning slowly like old cloth. He wanted to be strong for his wife, but life kept breaking him into small pieces. Chinwendu noticed the change. She saw how he stared into space, how he breathed deeply before speaking, how he forced smiles to hide sadness, and how he struggled to eat even when hungry. She prayed secretly, asking God to protect him from depression. She touched his back gently whenever he returned from work, whispering, "You are not alone. I am here." Her words comforted him, but they did not erase the storm inside. One evening, after returning from the building site, Emenike sat outside under a mango tree. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and gold. Children chased each other nearby. Birds prepared to sleep. The world looked peaceful, but his heart was boiling. He placed his elbows on his knees, covered his face with both hands, and wondered how everything went wrong. He remembered the days he fed families, sponsored students, built houses, paid hospital bills, and offered jobs to strangers. Now, he could not even buy soap. A tear escaped his eye, and he quickly wiped it before Chinwendu noticed. But she saw it. She came outside quietly, sat beside him, and placed her head on his shoulder. They remained silent for a while, listening to evening sounds. After some minutes, she said softly, "Maybe it is time to seek help." He looked at her, confused. She continued, "You have tried everything. Let God speak through someone." Her voice carried peace, not pressure. That suggestion stayed in his mind all the night. He did not sleep. He turned left and right repeatedly, thinking deeply. By sunrise, he made a decision. He would search for answers wherever they existed. The next day, he took a small bag, hugged his wife, and promised to return soon. He walked to the bus park and began a long journey. He did not know where to go first. He only knew he needed direction. He believed God would lead him to the right place. His first stop was a famous church in another town. The building was massive, full of bright lights and loud voices singing. The pastor prayed for many people: the sick, the unemployed, the heartbroken, the confused. When it was Emenike's turn, he knelt down and explained everything. The pastor laid hands on him and prayed strongly. After the prayer, the pastor looked at him in the eyes and said, "Someone close to you is fighting your destiny." Those words confused him, but he thanked the pastor, dropped a small offering, and left. He traveled to another prayer center located at the top of a big hill. Worshippers climbed barefoot because they believed humility touched God. The leader of the place asked Emenike to fast for one day. After the fast, he prayed and repeated the same statement. "The person troubling you lives very near." Emenike frowned. He wondered who could hate him enough to destroy him. He thought of business rivals, but they lived far away. He thought of old friends, but none had reason to harm him. The message remained mysterious. Still searching, he traveled to a well-known prophet in a coastal town. People queued for hours just to speak to him. Some slept on mats outside the compound, waiting for their turn. Emenike stood patiently until his name was called. When he entered the room, the prophet asked no questions. He simply said, "You have been helping the person who caused you suffering." Emenike gasped. His legs weakened. He wanted to speak, but his tongue refused to move. The prophet lifted his head slowly and added, "Be careful, your helper became a target." Fear filled every part of Emenike's body. He returned outside feeling lightheaded. The breeze touched his skin, but he did not feel it. The words refused to leave his mind. How could someone he helped hurt him? Why would anyone destroy a blessing? What did he do wrong? Who was behind it? His heart kept spinning like a motorcycle wheel, but he refused to stop searching. He believed God wanted him to continue until the truth revealed itself clearly. He visited different churches, both big and small. He entered prayer houses built with cement and others made with zinc doors. He met men with large congregations and others with only a few followers. Some prayed calmly, others shouted loudly. Some used anointing oil, others used water. Yet every single one said the same thing. Your battle is coming from someone close. The message began to frustrate him. It felt incomplete. It created fear, but no clarity. He started suspecting wrong people. He wondered about childhood neighbors, old teachers, distant cousins, customers, contractors, friends, even former workers. He hated thinking that way, but confusion pushed him there. Whenever he returned to the lodge or small room he slept in, he knelt down and begged God for mercy. He asked for wisdom. He asked for strength. Sometimes he cried until his chest hurt. Sometimes he sat silently, staring at the wall. Other times, he read the Bible until he fell asleep. His heart was broken, but he refused to lose faith completely. Meanwhile, Chinwendu continued fasting at home. She prayed before cooking. She prayed before sleeping. She prayed before opening the door in the morning. She placed a hand on their bed and asked God to restore her husband. She never blamed him. She never complained. She never regretted marrying him. She believed God still had a plan. Uloma also prayed in the city. She did not know details, but she felt something serious was happening. She sent encouraging messages. She reminded him that storms do not last forever. She promised to support him until the end. She loved her brother beyond circumstance. Back in the village, Egodi and Raphael lived their normal arrogant lives. They enjoyed comfort, food, drinks, flashy clothes, and respect from villagers who worshipped wealth. They did not know Emenike was moving from place to place, searching desperately for answers. They did not care how he survived. They believed he deserved punishment. They believed God rejected him. They believed life had already chosen sides forever. But destiny watches everything silently. One afternoon, after many long journeys, Emenike arrived in a small town. The sun was high, hitting the roofs loudly. He felt exhausted but continued walking. Someone directed him to a quiet church located behind a school. The building was not decorated. The compound was not crowded. Only a few chairs could be seen through the window. Yet something peaceful pulled him there. He entered slowly and saw an elderly man sweeping the altar. The man had grey hair, wrinkled skin, calm eyes, and a gentle smile. He looked ordinary, like someone who worked as a farmer. He did not wear expensive clothes or carry a microphone. He looked like someone who understood suffering. When the old man saw Emenike, he stopped sweeping and said, "I have been expecting you." Emenike widened his eyes. He had never seen him before. The man asked him to sit, offered him water, and waited patiently until he finished drinking. That small kindness alone touched Emenike deeply. The old man sat across from him and said softly, "Tell me your story." For the first time, Emenike spoke without rushing. He explained everything: his rise, his fall, his shame, his confusion, and his search for answers. The man listened without interrupting. When Emenike finished talking, silence filled the room. The old man sighed and said, "You have suffered too long." Tears fell from Emenike's eyes. The man continued, "But your battle is not from strangers. It is from blood, the one who should protect you." Those words pierced Emenike like a spear. His breathing stopped for a moment. His hands began shaking. He whispered, "Who?" But his voice sounded weak. The old man looked at him with deep sadness and replied, "Your downfall came from your own mother." Emenike felt like the ground disappeared beneath him. He blinked repeatedly, refusing to believe it. His heart raced like a frightened animal. No, he whispered. She would never do that. I built her house. I paid fees. I gave everything. His voice cracked painfully. The man shook his head slowly. She never loved you after she had her other children. You were adopted. She took you in as a baby and cared for you until jealousy entered her heart. The room became silent again. Emenike struggled to speak. Every word felt heavy. He remembered childhood memories, how she once smiled at him, how she later changed without explanation, how she preferred Raphael after he grew older. Puzzle pieces began forming in his mind. Things that never made sense now became clearer. The old man continued. She visited a place of darkness. She requested your downfall so that Raphael would rise. Emenike covered his face with both hands. His shoulders shook violently. He cried like a broken child. The man allowed him. Some pain must live through tears. After a while, the man stood, placed his hand on Emenike's head, and prayed slowly. He asked God to break every evil plan. He called for restoration, justice, healing, and protection. He declared that destiny would shine again. His prayer felt powerful yet gentle, like cool rain falling on dry ground. When the prayer ended, the old man said, Go home, forgive her, but prepare, because what she planted will return to her. Emenike wiped his eyes, nodded silently, and thanked him sincerely. The man smiled and added, God has not forgotten you. Emenike stepped outside slowly. The wind touched his face, and for the first time in a long while, he felt lighter, not because the pain disappeared, but because confusion was gone. Truth finally found him. It was heavy, painful, unbelievable, but it was all clear. After leaving the small quiet church, Emenike walked slowly toward the bus station like a man carrying the entire world on his shoulders. His steps felt heavy, his eyes were swollen, and his heart pounded painfully. The old man's words kept echoing in his ears, refusing to leave his mind. Every sentence replayed like a drumbeat. Your mother is not your real mother. You were adopted. She caused your downfall. He tried convincing himself that the man was wrong, but truth kept pushing back. The more he remembered his childhood, the more things began to make sense. Suddenly, small memories he once ignored started returning. Her sudden mood changes, her favoritism towards Raphael, her distance when he turned older, her strange anger whenever people praised him. He realized he had spent years protecting someone who secretly wanted him destroyed. He entered the bus, sat close to the window, and stared outside without blinking. Passengers talked, argued, laughed, and ate snacks, but he heard nothing. His mind traveled far beyond that vehicle. Tears rolled down his cheeks silently. He did not care if anyone noticed. He felt like a part of him died that day. When the bus arrived at the village, he stepped down weakly and walked home quietly. Dust rose beneath his slippers, but he did not feel it. The evening breeze blew softly, but he did not notice it. Children laughed nearby, but he did not hear them. He moved like a tired ghost. Chinwendu was outside, waiting anxiously. She had been praying since morning. When she saw Emenike approaching slowly, she knew something seriously had happened. She rushed toward him, held his hand tightly, and whispered, Talk to me. He looked at her with trembling lips, but no words came out. His eyes alone told the story. She led him inside gently, closed the door, and sat beside him on the bed. His body shook uncontrollably. She wrapped her arms around him, held him firmly, and allowed him to cry freely. He cried like a wounded child searching for comfort. His tears soaked her shoulder. She rubbed his back slowly and whispered, Let it out. I'm here. You are safe with me. After a long time, he gathered little strength and told her everything. The journey, the churches, the repeated messages. And finally, the shocking revelation about his adoption and his mother's wicked actions. At first, Chinwendu thought she misheard. She widened her eyes and covered her mouth. Her heart broke instantly. She never expected such darkness from someone who carried the title mother. She held his hand and said softly, I believe you. The signs were always there. He cried again, asking how a mother could hate her child. Chinwendu had no answer. She wiped his tears gently and kissed his forehead. She reminded him that God chose him, even if humans rejected him. They sat quietly for a while, listening to the silent wind moving outside. Then Emenike whispered, she already destroyed my business, my reputation, my peace. What more does she want? Chinwendu shook her head slowly, unable to understand the depth of hatred in Egodi's heart. She prayed silently, asking God to give them strength. That night, sleep refused to come. Emenike kept turning on the bed, remembering every insult, every humiliation, every cold stare, every cruel words his mother ever said. He remembered how she laughed when he lost everything. He remembered how she mocked him publicly. He remembered how she called him useless. Now he understood why. She wanted her evil to succeed completely. Around midnight, he sat up and sighed deeply. Chinwendu woke up immediately and placed her hand on his chest. She whispered, you are stronger than this pain. He nodded slowly, but his eyes carried endless sadness. He felt betrayed, abandoned, and unwanted. He felt like a stranger in his own family. By sunrise, he made another decision. He returned to the church where the old man prayed for him. When the man saw him enter, he smiled gently like someone already expecting him. Before Emenike spoke, the man said, pain opened your eyes, but healing will close the wound. Those words softened his heart. He knelt down again, this time with humility and surrender. Chinwendu knelt beside him, holding his hand tightly. The old man stretched his hand towards them and prayed with deep authority. He asked God to break every curse tied to Emenike's name, finances, marriage, future, and destiny. He asked heaven to return everything stolen from him. He asked the Holy Spirit to restore peace into their home. He commanded the power of hatred to die permanently. During the prayer, Emenike felt something lift up his shoulder. Something heavy and dark. His chest became lighter. His breathing became easier. His spirit felt free. Chinwendu cried quietly beside him because she could sense the change too. After the prayer, the old man looked at them and said, the battle is over, but revelation must come. They exchanged confused glances. The man continued, soon, everyone will know the truth. Not because you speak, but because God will expose what was hidden. He encouraged them to forgive because forgiveness breaks chains faster than anger. He warned them not to fight physically or react violently. He told them destiny always settles scores without human assistance. He reminded them that their story was not ending in shame, but in restoration. They thanked him deeply, gave him a small offering, and left with renewed strength. During the journey home, Emenike did not cry. Instead, he looked out of the window with calmness. He realized he was not cursed. He was attacked. He realized he was not weak. He was targeted. He realized he was not forgotten. He was chosen. When they reached the village, they walked hand in hand. For the first time in many months, he smiled sincerely at his wife. She smiled back with joy. They felt united, protected, and empowered. They knew healing had begun. Meanwhile, Egodi continued living like nothing was wrong. She woke up early, tied her wrapper, swept the compound, and sat outside gossiping with neighbors. She remained proud and loud. She believed her evil would never be discovered. She believed Raphael would keep rising forever. She believed Emenike would remain powerless. She believed destiny could be controlled. Raphael, on the other hand, continued spending recklessly. He partied often, invited friends to drink, and showed off his wealth publicly. He drove around with loud music, trying to prove he was better than anyone else. He did not know he was dancing on borrowed time. Villagers still admired him, but some began noticing changes. His arrogance, his impatience, his disrespect for elders. They whispered quietly, wondering where his money came from, but nobody confronted him. Uloma called Emenike again, feeling something shifting spiritually. She told him she would visit him soon. He assured her everything was under control, but she still prayed harder. She believed a greater revelation was coming. Meanwhile, inside their small room they rented newly, Chinwendu cooked dinner happily. Emenike sat nearby watching her, grateful that love found him even through suffering. He thanked God quietly for giving him a wife who never abandoned him, even when life mocked him. That night, they prayed together before sleeping. They held hands, closed their eyes, and thanked God for exposing the truth. They did not ask for revenge. They only asked for restoration, peace, and divine direction. As they lay down to rest, a gentle breeze entered through the window. It felt like God sending a message. The storm is ending. Emenike closed his eyes and slept deeply for the first time in a very long time. Outside, the moon shone brightly over the village, unaware that a spiritual battle had already shifted. Egodi continued sleeping peacefully, not knowing her darkest secret was already uncovered. Raphael snored loudly inside his rented mansion, not knowing his world was about to collapse. Destiny had finally spoken. The truth was no longer hiding, and very soon the consequences would arrive, loud, undeniable, and unforgettable. Emenike and Chinwendu continued fasting and praying daily. They prayed in the morning before work, they prayed at night before sleeping, and they prayed anytime worry tried to return. Sometimes Emenike knelt alone, crying tears of gratitude instead of pain. Other times, Chinwendu held his hand and prayed in agreement. They believed the battle was already won. After several days, they returned to the elderly man of God for final prayers. The moment he saw them, he smiled like someone already aware of the victory. Without wasting time, he placed his hands on their heads and prayed with authority. His voice echoed across the church as he declared freedom, restoration, and breakthrough, and spiritual cleansing. He rebuked every evil chain holding Emenike's destiny hostage. He commanded every curse to scatter permanently. During the prayer, Emenike felt sudden heat run through his body, like fire burning away darkness. Chinwendu felt strong wind pass beside her, yet no door or window was open. The atmosphere changed, thick, powerful, holy. When the man finished praying, he wiped his forehead, looked at them, and said gently, "It is done." Those three words felt like medicine entering a wound. They thanked him endlessly. He blessed them again, shook their hands, and encouraged them not to fear anything anymore. As they walked out of the church, they felt like winners. The sky looked bluer, the breeze felt softer, and their hearts felt safe. Something invisible had shifted permanently. That same week, the spiritual world released justice. Raphael began planning a foreign trip. He wanted a new lifestyle, bigger business connections, and louder bragging rights. He packed his expensive shirts, costly perfumes, shiny shoes, and gold accessories. He bragged to villagers that he would return with more money, more than before. He told friends to expect gifts. He even told his mother to prepare for a bigger celebration. Egodi danced around the compound, pleased with her son's plans. She told neighbors her enemies would soon bow. She acted like Raphael owned the whole planet. She reminded everyone that she raised a champion. She did not know that destruction was already walking toward the doorstep. On the morning of Raphael's trip, he drove to the airport with loud music playing in his car. His friends followed him in another vehicle, laughing and cheering. They recorded videos, took pictures, and posted them online for attention. They boasted that greatness belonged only to their circle. Raphael removed fresh money bundles from his pocket and waved them proudly, just to show off. When he reached the airport entrance, something unusual happened. A security dog started barking repeatedly and refused to move away from Raphael's luggage. Security officers approached and asked him to step aside for inspection. Raphael laughed, believing it was routine. He just held his glasses, posed confidently, and waited. But the inspector's face changed when they opened the bag. Wrapped carefully inside the lining were sealed packages of illegal drugs. Raphael's smile disappeared instantly. His throat went dry. His legs weakened. His eyes widened in shock. He tried to speak, but no words came out. The officers surrounded him immediately. They handcuffed him, read out his offenses, and pulled him aside. His friends watched from a distance, speechless. None of them moved forward. None tried helping him. None defended him. Fear entered their hearts and they quietly disappeared like shadows running from daylight. Raphael begged loudly. He claimed the bag didn't belong to him. He said someone set him up. He pleaded that he knew nothing about drugs, but the evidence was too clear. Security cameras captured him carrying the bag confidently. His passport was beside the luggage. His fingerprints were on the package. Everything pointed directly at him. Within minutes, he became a criminal suspect. Airport police dragged him into a small office for questioning. Officers shouted at him. Reporters arrived quickly. Cameras flashed in his face. News platforms typed headlines immediately. Within 1 hour, the story spread across the internet. Before evening, everyone in his village had heard the shocking news. Phones started ringing everywhere. Some people screamed in disbelief. Others covered their mouths. Some felt pity, while others whispered secretly that they always suspected his wealth. Women selling fruits in the market paused. Men playing draft dropped their game pieces. Children stopped running and listened with wide eyes. The village atmosphere changed instantly. Even those who once admired him began claiming they always knew something was wrong. Some said his money was too fast. Others said he never explained his work. People judged him without mercy. His glorious reputation crumbled within minutes, like sandcastle meeting strong waves. When the news reached Tegod, she froze like a statue. Her wrapper loosened around her waist. Her mouth hung open. She sat on the ground slowly, feeling dizzy. At first, she denied the story. She screamed that it was a lie. She said jealous people were spreading rumors. But when she confirmed it through television broadcast, she burst into loud wailing. She cried until her eyes became red. She rolled on the ground, pulling her hair, begging the universe to reverse everything. Neighbors gathered, watching quietly, unsure of what to say. Some tried consoling her, but she pushed them away angrily. Her shame felt too heavy to carry. Meanwhile, Emenike and Chinwendu heard the news too. They sat inside their room silently, shocked and speechless. Chinwendu placed her hand on her husband's shoulder, unsure of what to say. He stared at the floor, breathing slowly. Even though Raphael hurt him deeply, he felt no joy. Instead, he felt sadness. Not because of the crime, but because destruction had finally reached his brother. He whispered, God have mercy. Chinwendu nodded gently, agreeing with his prayer. They did not gossip. They did not celebrate. They simply prayed for forgiveness and salvation. Their hearts remained pure, despite everything done to them. Raphael spent the night in the police custody. The room was cold, uncomfortable, and dirty. His expensive clothes no longer mattered. His jewelry meant nothing. His perfume could not save him. His money had no power. He cried silently, remembering how he once laughed at his brother. Now he understood how quickly life could change. The next morning, his so-called friends switched off their phones. Some blocked his number, others deleted his picture. People he once fed now pretended they had never known him. Those who drank his wine suddenly claimed they warned him before. His party group vanished immediately. Wealth attracted them, not loyalty. Investigators searched his rented house and seized everything valuable: televisions, chairs, electronics, clothes, and even personal documents. His bank accounts were frozen instantly. His cars were impounded. Everything he once bragged about disappeared overnight. He became empty, helpless, and terrified. Back in the village, villagers discussed endlessly. Some blamed greed, some blamed pride, some blamed bad friends, others blamed spiritual powers. But most people agreed on one thing: no one truly knows another person's heart. Egodi refused to eat. She stopped talking. She sat in the corner of her compound, staring into space with swollen eyes. Shame wrapped itself around her like heavy cloth. She remembered how she mocked Emenike whenever he molded blocks. She remembered how she insulted his wife. She remembered how she bragged about Raphael's wealth. Now, her voice was gone. Soon, judgment began spreading beyond the village. Extended family members called angrily. Community leaders expressed disappointment. Church members discussed quietly. Former admirers avoided her. People pointed fingers whenever she walked past. Respect disappeared completely. Days passed slowly. Raphael remained in the custody, facing serious charges. Lawyers demanded huge payment, but he had nothing left. His mother begged people for help, but nobody offered support. Even those she once insulted turned away politely. She tasted rejection for the first time, and it stung deeply. Meanwhile, Imenike continued praying. He believed God had a reason for everything. He did not defend his mother. He did not insult Raphael. He simply prayed for mercy. Chinwendu prayed beside him, holding his hands lovingly, thanking God for breaking the curse without destroying their humanity. The village soon realized something bigger. Divine justice had taken place. Some elders said the downfall of the wicked always arrives loudly. Others said nothing and nobody can fight destiny. Mothers warned their children never to envy anyone. Men advised young people to work honestly. Everyone learned a lesson from Raphael's sudden crash. Even the workers at the construction site looked at Emenike differently. They now respected his endurance, humility, and patience. They whispered that he must have a strong destiny. They admired how he never cursed anyone, even when life treated him unfairly. Slowly, people began greeting him again with sincerity instead of mockery. As Raphael sat alone in the cold prison corner, he finally realized something. Money without peace is a curse. He remembered Emenike walking under the sun and understood the meaning of dignity. Tears filled his eyes again, but this time they carried regret, not anger. Some nights, he closed his eyes and saw his brother's face. He remembered how Emenike paid his school fees, bought his clothes, and fed him when he had nothing. Shame covered him. He wished he could rewind time and choose humility instead of envy. He wished he had protected his brother instead of joining insults. He wished he had stayed grateful. But life never moves backward. Everything had changed. Emenike's curse was broken, while Raphael's hidden evil finally surfaced for the world to see. And destiny was not finished yet. More revelations, more consequences, and more restoration were still on the way. Egodi stayed indoors for many days. She stopped sitting outside, stopped gossiping, stopped dressing boldly, stopped smiling proudly. She refused to greet anyone. She locked her door and cried until her voice became weak. Her eyes remained swollen and red. Food lost its taste. Sleep refused to come. Every memory stabbed her like a sharp blade. She remembered when Raphael drove into the village with loud music, waving money proudly. She remembered the day she mocked pregnant women, widows, and struggling mothers, boasting that God loved her more. She remembered insulting neighbors whose children were unemployed. She remembered laughing whenever villagers talked about Emenike molding blocks. Those memories now haunted her like shadows that refused to leave. Night after night, she lay on her bed thinking deeply. For the first time in her life, she listened to her conscience. She replayed every wicked thing she ever said, every curse she ever poured, every humiliation she ever gave her first son. She recalled how she chased away Chinwendu with insults, how she called her worthless, how she mocked her clothes, how she refused to eat her food. Shame swallowed her completely. Then she remembered the worst part: the secret visit to the witch doctor, the dark room, the calabash, the powder, the whispered instructions, the evil desire she carried that night. She placed her hands on her head and cried uncontrollably. She wished she could erase that moment forever, but her heart refused to forget. Regret poured out of her like rainwater from a broken roof. Meanwhile, the village started noticing a new change. Emenike was different. His face looked peaceful. His steps were steady. His smile returned slowly, like sunlight rising after a long storm. Builders respected him again. Shop owners greeted him warmly. Children waved at him happily. People brought small gifts: vegetables, oranges, cassava, palm oil, just to show support. He accepted everything with humility. One morning, Igodi stepped outside and saw Emenike passing with his work tools. For the first time, she saw him clearly, not as a failure, not as competition, but as a son she tried to destroy. His shoulders looked strong, but she could see the pain he still carried. She remembered the house he once built for her, the food he once supplied, the school fees he once paid, the clothes he once gifted her. Tears rushed down her cheeks again. That afternoon, news arrived from the city. Raphael's case was getting worse. Bail was denied. Evidence was strong. He might face long prison years. The message broke Egodi completely. She grabbed her head, rolled on the floor, and screamed loudly. Villagers rushed to her compound, shocked but unable to comfort her. She pushed everyone away and shouted repeatedly, I caused it! I caused everything! She cried. She cried so much that she began shaking. Neighbors carried her inside gently. Some prayed for her, others wiped her tears. But nothing eased the pain. She wished she could erase time. She wished she could trade places with Raphael. She wished she could return to the moment jealousy entered her heart and throw it away. But life offered no rewind button. That evening, she stood up slowly, washed her face, tied her wrapper properly, and walked toward Emenike's house. She moved like a tired traveler, dragging her feet gently across the ground. Her body felt heavier than ever. Her mind screamed with guilt. Her chest burned with shame. People saw her and followed quietly, wondering what she intended to do. When she reached the small room where Emenike and Chinwendu lived, she paused at the door. Her hands trembled. She took a deep breath, knocked gently, and waited. Chinwendu opened the door, surprised to see her mother-in-law standing there. Before she could speak, Egodi dropped to her knees suddenly, shocking everyone around. Chinwendu gasped and attempted to lift her, but Egodi held her hands tightly and shook her head. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, Please call my son. Chinwendu rushed inside, calling Emenike with urgency. When Emenike stepped outside and saw his mother kneeling on the ground, his heart stopped. He dropped the bucket he was holding and stared in confusion. He never imagined this moment could happen. Villagers gathered silently, afraid to interrupt. With shaking hands, Egodi touched the ground, bowed her head, and cried loudly, Forgive me. I wronged you. I destroyed your life. I allowed jealousy to control me. I forgot all your kindness, and I treated you like an enemy. Her voice broke repeatedly. Her tears soaked the soil beneath her. Chinwendu covered her mouth, trying not to cry. Egodi continued, You gave me everything. You built my house, fed my children, clothed me, and I paid you back with wickedness. I visited darkness because I wanted Raphael to shine. Now, look at what have happened. Look at what I am suffering. He is suffering. Please, my son, remove bitterness from your heart. I beg you. I beg you. Her crying echoed across the compound like thunder. People watching also wiped their eyes. Even those who once enjoyed gossip felt ashamed for supporting her actions. Some whispered prayers, Others stared quietly, learning a lifelong lesson. Emenike stood frozen, speechless. His chest tightened. His throat felt heavy. His legs shook. He remembered every insult, every humiliation, every wound she caused. He remembered molding blocks while she laughed. He remembered returning home hungry while she mocked him. He remembered her calling him useless in front of strangers. The pain was real, deep, sharp, unforgettable. Chinwendu touched his arm gently, reminding him he was not alone. He breathed deeply and walked towards his mother slowly. He knelt beside her, lifted her chin gently, and whispered, "Stand up, Mama." She shook her head, crying harder. He wiped her tears with his thumb and repeated, "Please stand." With help from Chinwendu, she rose shakily to her feet. Emenike looked into her eyes with painful honesty. He could still see guilt, regret, and heartbreak inside them. She waited for punishment, expecting him to reject her forever. Instead, he opened his arms widely and pulled her into a soft embrace. The crowd gasped. Egodi broke down completely in his arms, crying loudly like a child. She held him tightly, refusing to let go. He rubbed her back slowly and whispered, "I forgive you. I forgive everything. I will not carry hatred inside my heart. I leave judgment to God." Those words healed something inside her immediately. Her legs weakened again, but Emenike supported her. Chinwendu joined the embrace, holding both of them gently. The three stood together, crying silently. One crying out of regret, one crying out of relief, one crying out of compassion. Villagers watching began clapping slowly. Some prayed, some hugged each other, others thanked God. Forgiveness created peace in a place where bitterness once lived. A heavy cloud lifted from the air. Egodi pulled away gently, wiped her tears, and held Chinwendu's hand. She whispered, "My daughter, I am sorry. You did nothing wrong. I treated you like trash. I talked like a mad woman. Please forgive me." Chinwendu nodded immediately and hugged her, saying softly, "I realized everything long ago." Shame transformed into humility. Pride melted into repentance. Anger disappeared completely. That night, Egodi returned home quietly, feeling lighter than she had in years. She sat on her bed and cried again, but this time, the tears cleansed her heart instead of destroying it. She knelt beside her bed, lifted her hands toward heaven, and prayed for the first time without pride. She begged God to rebuild her family, restore Raphael, and protect Emenike. Meanwhile, Emenike and Chinwendu sat together under the evening sky, holding hands. He thanked God for giving him strength to forgive. She leaned on his shoulder and said, "Your heart is pure. That is why God will lift you again." He smiled gently, believing her words. Forgiveness had unlocked a new beginning. Unseen, unexpected, unstoppable. The storm was ending, and restoration was already on its way. Life slowly returned to normal in the village after forgiveness took place. The heavy darkness that once surrounded Emenike's home disappeared completely. Peace filled his mind. Joy returned to his marriage. Hope entered his heart again like fresh air blowing through an open window. He woke up every morning feeling grateful to be alive. Chinwendu noticed the change first. She watched her husband smile without forcing it. She saw him walking confidently. She heard him laugh again after many painful months. She thanked God quietly, knowing prayers had finally worked. Their home became warmer, happier, safer, and more peaceful than ever. One morning, while Emenike prepared to go to work, his phone rang. He checked the screen and saw a number he had not seen in a long time. He hesitated for a moment, wondering whether to answer. Chinwendu encouraged him gently, telling him not to fear anything. He picked up the call. The voice on the other end greeted him respectfully. It was a popular building contractor from the city, someone who once admired his honesty before his downfall. The man said he heard Emenike was back in the village and wanted to confirm if he was still in the construction business. Emenike replied softly, unsure of what the call meant. The contractor laughed and said, "Prepare yourself, a miracle is coming." He explained that a massive building project had just been approved: a modern school, staff quarters, and a large hall. The company needed someone trustworthy to supply materials, supervise labor, and manage purchases. Many businessmen applied, but after long discussions, the board chose one name: Emenike's. The man said he recommended him because he believed in his character. He then asked him to return to the city immediately for documentation. Emenike froze. His breath paused. His hands trembled. He felt like the world stopped moving. Chinwendu watched him closely and whispered, "What happened?" Tears filled his eyes before he could speak. He placed the phone down slowly, covered his face with both hands, and cried, not from pain, but from overwhelming joy. Chinwendu knelt beside him too, crying. They hugged each other tightly, thanking God repeatedly. It felt like rain falling on dry land. It felt like dawn after a long stormy night. It felt like God saying, "I never left you." Within hours, news spread quietly among close friends. Uloma heard about it first and screamed joyfully through the phone. She danced inside her living room and prayed loudly, thanking God for honoring their brother again. She promised to support him financially until he settled fully in the city. The next morning, Emenike packed his few belongings into a small bag. Chinwendu ironed his clothes neatly and packed food for the journey. She reminded him to pray before signing anything. He held her hands, looked into her eyes and said, "Your love kept me alive." She smiled and replied, "Your faith carried us." He traveled to the city with a peaceful heart. Memories of his past struggles flushed through his mind, but they no longer hurt. Instead, they became testimonies of survival. When he arrived at the contractor's office, he was welcomed like a respected guest. People shook his hand warmly. Some remembered him from his earlier success and congratulated him. Others admired his humility. He reviewed the project documents carefully. The contract amount was huge, far bigger than any work he ever handled before. The figures shocked him. He felt honored but also humbled. The contractor placed his hand on Emenike's shoulder and said, "You deserve this. Your good heart brought you here." After signing everything, the company transferred advance money into his account for immediate materials. When he checked his balance, he almost fainted. It was beyond anything he imagined. God had restored him with multiplication, not addition. He called Chinwendu immediately. She screamed happily and began thanking God. She dropped to her knees and lifted her hands upward. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She could not contain her joy. She knew her husband's story had finally changed forever. Work started quickly. Truck delivered cement, sand, iron rods, bricks, ties, and roofing sheets. Workers respected him deeply because he treated everyone fairly and paid wages on time. He managed everything responsibly. He supervised builders, carpenters, painters, and electricians with wisdom and patience. Soon, people in the city started hearing about him again, but this time, not as a fallen man, but as a highly trusted contractor, returning stronger than before. Companies contacted him for future projects. Business doors opened one after another, like locked gates receiving master keys. His phone rang daily with new opportunities. Meanwhile, villagers began hearing about his rising success. Some felt ashamed for mocking him earlier. Others felt proud of him. Many said forgiveness brought blessings. Mothers used the story to teach their children about patience. Elders said destiny can be delayed but never denied. With steady income flowing into his account, Emenike made another decision. He wanted to build a new home, not just any building, but a house that represented peace, comfort, safety, and fresh beginnings. He bought land far away from their house, in a calm, quiet place surrounded by green trees, fresh air, and wide open space. He wanted his wife to live without insult, gossip, or emotional stress. Construction began immediately. The mansion rose slowly like a dream turning into reality. It had wide balconies, shining windows, beautiful tiles, modern furniture, spacious rooms, and a large compound. Flowers lined the walkway. A strong fence protected the property. When it was completed, it looked like a palace made for royalty. One evening, Emenike returned to the village, told Chiwendo to pack her things, and surprised her by driving her to the new house. When she saw the building, she covered her mouth in disbelief. Tears of gratitude rolled down her cheeks. She felt honored, treasured, valued, and loved. He lifted her up gently and said, "Welcome home, honey." They moved in together, closing the chapter of pain behind them. They prayed in the sitting room, thanking God for turning ashes into beauty. That night, they slept peacefully without fear of insult or humiliation. Their heart rested for the first time in years. Uloma visited often. She brought groceries, clothes, baby gifts, and encouragement. She laughed with them, prayed with them, and celebrated every victory. She remained the only sibling with a clean heart. She became a bridge of love, connecting everyone gently. Meanwhile, Raphael's life continued sinking. After years of legal battles, he was released because he cooperated with authorities. However, he came out with nothing: no car, no house, no money, no friends, no respect, and no reputation. He returned to the village quietly, dragging a small bag behind him like a forgotten traveler. Villagers stared at him, but no one celebrated. Some pitied him, others avoided him completely. His once loud voice became silent. His expensive clothes disappeared. He wore simple shirts and old slippers. Poverty visited him the same way pride once did. He passed by the construction site and watched laborers working hard under the sun. For the first time, he understood how life humbled his brother. Regret filled his heart like water filling a broken container. He wished he had chosen honesty, gratitude, and humility. He wished he had supported Emenike instead of helping their mother destroy him. Egodi also changed completely. She aged quickly. Her hair turned grey. Her shoulders dropped. Pride disappeared from her work. She no longer wore heavy makeup or loud clothes. She spent most of her days sitting quietly under a tree, staring into space. She rarely spoke. Whenever she remembered her actions, guilt returned like a painful echo. She avoided gatherings because shame followed her everywhere. She regretted every evil step she took, especially the night she walked into darkness to destroy her own child. She lived with that memory like a permanent wound. She wished she could apologize every day, but she knew forgiveness already came. Still, her conscience refused to rest. She visited Emenike sometimes, but not often. She did not want to disturb his peace. Whenever she saw him, she cried softly and begged. She begged him. She begged God to bless him more. He also offered her food, respect, and gentle words because his heart remained pure. Raphael also visited once. He stood far from the gate, unable to open it. He feared judgment. He expected anger, but Emenike saw him, walked toward him, hugged him tightly, and said, "You are still my brother." Raphael broke down immediately, crying uncontrollably. He felt cleansed and forgiven. That moment healed him more than any medication could. Life continued moving, but one truth remained: good hearts never lose. Time continued moving, and slowly the village returned to its usual rhythm. Children played on dusty roads. Farmers gathered near their barns. Women sold vegetables at the market, and men discussed politics under big trees. But inside Egodi's compound, life felt different, quieter, calmer, softer. Raphael now lived there permanently. He no longer chased attention or boasted about wealth. He woke up early, swept the compound, fetched water, washed clothes, and helped his mother with small chores. He mostly stayed indoors, avoiding crowds. Shame still followed him like a shadow, but he was learning how to breathe again. Sometimes he walked around the village searching for day labor, hoping to earn little money for soap or food. Some people hired him, but others avoided him because of the past. He accepted everything silently. He knew he created the pain himself. He spent many nights staring at the ceiling, wondering how he let jealousy destroy his life. Egodi watched her son with a heavy heart. She blamed herself more than him. She blamed her actions pushed him into darkness. She tried cooking his favorite meals, but appetite refused to return. She prayed constantly, asking God to restore Raphael before she died. She wanted joy to enter her home once more. Meanwhile, Emenike's life kept rising like early morning sun. His big project in the city continued smoothly, and more opportunities kept coming. Companies trusted him, builders respected him, and suppliers enjoyed working with him because he always spoke respectfully and paid on time. His business account grew every week. He and Chinwendu enjoyed their peaceful mansion. They planted flowers, painted walls, bought new furniture, and created a small prayer corner near the living room. They woke up smiling, cooked together, laughed often, and thanked God daily. Their home carried warmth, not because of money, but because love lived there. But even in his comfort, Emenike never forgot where he came from. He often sat outside at night, looking at the stars and remembering his days of molding blocks, walking barefoot, sleeping on a tin mattress, and begging God for mercy. Those memories kept him humble. One Sunday afternoon, after church service, Emenike and Chinwendu sat in their garden, drinking wine and discussing. The breeze was gentle, birds chirped, and everything looked peaceful. But when Raphael's name entered the conversation, the atmosphere changed slightly. Chinwendu placed her wine glass down and said softly, I have been thinking. Emenike looked at her with curiosity. She continued, Raphael is still young. He can rebuild his life. He sighed quietly, unsure of where she was going. She leaned closer and added, Give him a chance. He remained silent for a moment, not because he was angry, but because he was careful. He remembered Raphael's insult, mockery, and heartless behavior. He remembered the pain of being humiliated in public by his own brother. But he also remembered praying for forgiveness, asking God to cleanse his heart from bitterness. Chinwendu touched his hand gently and whispered, Helping him doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means choosing peace. Her voice carried wisdom. Emenike nodded slowly. He trusted her judgment. She always saw what he missed. Later that week, he went to visit his mother. He entered his mother's compound, not wanting to scare anyone. Raphael sat outside peeling oranges. When he looked up and saw his brother, he froze. His hands trembled. He stood slowly, unsure whether to run, speak, or kneel. Egodi came outside immediately, shocked. She covered her chest and gasped loudly. She wanted to kneel again, but Emenike rushed forward and held her up gently. He hugged her tightly, whispering, I came in peace. She cried softly, wiping her eyes with her wrapper. Raphael swallowed hard and looked down. He wanted to speak, but guilt choked his words. Emenike walked toward him slowly. Raphael stepped back, afraid of disappointing him again. But instead of anger, Emenike opened his arms. Raphael collapsed into the embrace, crying loudly like a wounded child. He kept repeating, I am sorry. I am sorry. I am sorry. Emenike held him firmly. It is okay, he whispered. We can start again. These simple words broke years of pain in Raphael's heart. He sank to the ground, crying freely. After everyone calmed down, they entered the house and sat together. Emenike explained why he came. Raphael listened quietly, wiping tears from his cheeks. Emenike said, Working for people is not shameful, but you deserve a fresh beginning. Raphael looked confused. What do you mean, bro? He asked softly. Emenike smiled gently and placed a brown envelope on the table. Raphael stared at it without touching it. Emenike continued. This is a check. Enough to start a small business. Not too big and not too small. Just something honest. Raphael shook his head, refusing. I don't deserve it, he whispered, but Emenike pushed the envelope closer. You are my brother. You are my blood, he said. If you stand again, our family stands too. Egodi burst into fresh tears. thanking God repeatedly. She knelt beside both sons and prayed loudly, asking heavens to bless Emenike more than anyone on earth. She held his hands and said, "You are a better man than I am ever was as a mother." He squeezed her hand gently and replied, "We are learning." Raphael finally accepted the envelope, shaking with emotion. He promised to use the money wisely. He promised not to return to shortcuts. He promised to work with dignity. He promised to make his brother proud. Most importantly, he promised to carry gratitude forever. In the following weeks, he rented a shop and started a mini supermarket in the market square. Raphael woke up every morning with purpose. He swept his store, arranged goods neatly, and greeted customers politely. He counted money carefully and saved instead of wasting. He began gaining respect again, not because of wealth, but because of humility. Egodi supported him by cooking food for workers and praying constantly. Her laughter returned gradually, quieter, wiser, without pride. Meanwhile, Emenike continued sending monthly support to his mother, not because she demanded it, but because kindness lived inside him. He brought her medicine, clothes, soaps, blankets, and foodstuff. He visited occasionally, never empty-handed. He never reminded her of the past. He treated her like a mother, not an enemy. Chinwendu also checked on them often. She sent fruits, rice, cooking oil, and wrappers. She called Raphael to encourage him. She reminded him that second chances are precious. She reminded Egodi to rest and drink enough water. Her voice healed wounds gently. Soon, the village noticed something beautiful. After a long period of division, bitterness, and jealousy, the family finally reunited. People praised God. Some said love won. Others said humility built bridges. Everyone agreed that Emenike's heart carried rare goodness. Years passed. Raphael's business expanded. Egodi aged peacefully, surrounded by love instead of gossip. She lived long enough to see harmony return. And every time villagers told the story, they ended with the same lesson. Kindness is stronger than revenge. And when a family heals, God smiles. The most important lesson in this story is that in life, parents must love all their children equally and never show favoritism, because jealousy can destroy families, and children must also learn that shortcuts to wealth only bring shame and regret, while patience, honesty, hard work, forgiveness, and a good heart always lead to true success and peace. And with that, my dear friends, our story comes to a close. But remember, the magic of storytelling lives on, waiting to whisk us away on new adventures where the wonders of imagination know no bounds. Goodbye for now, and may your dreams be filled with joy, wonder, and endless possibility. Thank you so much for watching. Please kindly comment, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting stories.